Hello and welcome to Chronological Clone Wars, presented by the Podawakens. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, on his first watch as we wrap up season 6. It's done, Logan. Is Logan. How are you today, Logan?
I'm fantastic. Just a little sad because we are wrapping up season 6. I really enjoyed it a lot. I think it's one of my favorites, if not my favorite. But yeah, I'm looking forward to season 7. And Jordan, we're almost done with the Clone Wars. It's been a long war. You know, we've been through it. We've been through the trenches. We've been in the
Yeah.
trenches. But we've almost made it. Although we'll get Yoda alluding to the fact that war's never over. War is never over.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking the Yoda Force arc here at the end of season 3, which is the Lost One, Voices, Destiny, and Sacrifice. I had mentioned it last time. I was originally thinking of adding the Lost One as part of the Mace Windu arc, not as part of the arc, but it was like, look, the other 3 episodes have a actual, like, Yoda is following this arc the whole time, but it's like one word titles as well. This one kind of kicks all of that off with Yoda though, and I changed my mind kind of when we got to when I started watching Voices, and the opening was like the narration referring all of the stuff that happened in the Lost One. That I was like, okay, I actually probably have to restructure this a bit. Um, and plus, also, like, the Jar Jar episodes were not enough. Like, if we had actually went through with doing what my original vision was, Logan, of us doing those two by themselves for an episode, it'd be like a 5 minute episode. Um,
Yeah.
but these other episodes are all very, very important, and the Lost One is one of my favorites, and is very important because it answers questions from Attack of the Clones that have existed ever since. Um, so they get a distress signal that is sent out from the missing ship. And before we do that, actually, I should probably give all the credits and stuff. But all these episodes were written by Christian Taylor, and the Lost One was directed by Brian Kalin O'Connell. Voices was directed by Danny Keller. Destiny was directed by Kyle Dunleavy, and Sacrifice was directed by Stuart Lee. They all premiered March 7th, 2014 on Netflix. And the synopsises were: The Lost One, the Jedi renew an investigation into a mysterious disappearance. Voices, Yoda escapes the Jedi Temple to follow a disembodied voice. Destiny, Yoda undergoes training to uncover the secret to immortality. And Sacrifice, Yoda faces the evil of the Sith. So a lot to talk about in here, but we kind of kick it off with a distress signal that's sent out from a missing ship randomly after 10 years, and it's or around that, and Plo Koon is sent to investigate, and he finds a lightsaber that they confirm is Master Sifo Dyas lightsaber. Now, did this name bring any recognition to you right away here from Attack of the Clones, or you have to Google here?
No, I knew the name because I can hear Palpatine talking about Sifo-Dyas, and I can hear I think it's Obi-Wan who references Sifo-Dyas at some point, where I can
Yes,
just
he
hear them
does.
both saying it, um, and talking about the Great Master and who he was and his death, and then we don't get much else than that. So I was really excited because I was like, I don't know much about Sifo-Dyas, so
Well, did you know that Sifo Dyas was due to a typo error in Attack of the Clones at first?
no.
It was supposed to be. This is what I used on my Wheel of Fortune application too for the Star Wars night.
Okay, yeah,
But it was like give us a fact that you know about Star Wars that many people may not know. And look, the hardcore people know this. Listening probably know this, but um, Master Sifo Dyas was originally supposed to be Sio Diaz, and it was supposed to be like a different looking spelling of Darth Sidious, and it was supposed to be that Palpatine did this under his Darth Sidious name, but posed as a Jedi named Sio Diaz. Um, George put typed it in wrong, and it came out as Sifo Diaz instead of Sido Diaz, and he kept it. And then they've just retroactively actually made this be a Jedi. And then you were really confused on, okay, well, but the Jedi didn't actually set up the clone army, right? Like, this is
yeah.
all Palpatine's and Dooku's plan. But what we get from this episode, right, is that Sifo Dyas kind of went a little crazy near the end and kept saying that we need to uh, raise an army because the Republic is going to come under attack. And they were like, "That's crazy, dude. What are you talking about?" So then I guess Dooku and Palpatine know this, so they intercept Sifo Dyas, kill him, right? Dooku poses as Sifo Dyas when he makes the clone order.
Oh, that's right. Because that's when Obi-Wan's like, wait, I'm confused. Sifo Dyas is dead. And that's how he
Yeah,
kind of knew.
Sifo Dyas
He's like,
died
wait a
like 10
minute.
years ago.
Yeah, he's like, how, huh?
Yeah,
Oops.
and that is so that's kind of how this is lined up. And they're like, yeah, well, this clone army was made like 10 years ago, like because they had to grow up and stuff. So but it makes it look like to the Jedi that Sifo Dyas just ordered this army, and they're like, all right, cool, let's use it. And this is kind of my biggest problem with, and I know they're trying to make this seem right, but my biggest problem with the prequels is that the Jedi don't question this. Is one of my biggest problems with it. And you know what I do when I have problems with canon, Logan? I just end up accepting them and just be like, that's a weird choice. I don't attack Wikipedia or anybody like that online, like a certain person. But so here's the issue that I have with it. Because they actually mention this in the episode. Obi-Wan and Anakin talk to the council, and Yoda's like, our enemy created an army for us. If this was known, the confidence in the Jedi and the Republic would fall, right? Like, yeah, no one, not even the Chancellor, can know. Too late. He already knows, right? And they're like, well, the clones have been valiant men. We, believe in them. We must. Yoda says, win the war. We must, because our enemies plan completion before our enemies plan completion, whatever it may be. So they're pretty much like, yeah, we just took this army because we were in dire need at that time with the separatist rise. We had no other choices. And then we find out it's part of an enemy's plan, but we're still going to use them because the clone have fought valiantly with us. Except for like a week ago when they killed a Jedi Master and started going crazy. You didn't question that? Like, what? You know about the inhibitor chips. They know about the inhibitor chips because they've shown fives and they showed tups. So they know that there's an actual inhibitor chip, and they're like, can't be anything wrong with that. Like, wake up, guys.
Yeah, sleeping through it. I mean, just sleep at the wheel. This is why the Empire is the team that they are today. That other team just slept on them, and there's a lot of things though. And then the whole argument, I'm sure, is that Palpatine clouded their judgment, clouded everything that they're doing. And I kind of get that, but then there's also there's a lot of common sense and Yoda. This whole story arc, it's like Yoda has all these visions and this is discussions with the Force ghost of Qui-Gon, and it's like, what's actually happening? Like, Yoda, how did you lose control? So honestly, we're down to C-3PO, R2-D2, and Yoda, the reason as to why Darth Vader exists the way that he does today. And Mace Windu. I'll blame Mace too. Because
there's
there's 4 people to blame.
There's some issues that I had while watching this that I'm like, I love the foreshadowing on this stuff. But also it's like, so did Yoda not remember the visions? Or is he like trying to prevent this the whole rest of the time then and fails? Like that's kind of some of the questions I have about this arc, which I think they set out originally to be like, we need to explain how Yoda has been already communicating with Qui-Gon, so that way at the end of episode 3, when I don't even know if this actually happens in the movie. Can you confirm if this happens in the movie or not? I know it happens in the book in a deleted scene, or like maybe a deleted scene. But Yoda tells, I think it happens in the movie. Yoda tells Obi-Wan he has training for him from an old master.
Yes. Yeah.
Does that happens in the movie? Okay.
It happens somewhere where I've seen it. Yes. Like, or I've discussed it. Yes.
Yeah. That's what
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when they're getting ready to like send the babies out to the different
Yeah.
locations. Yoda says something like that.
Like there's an old transmission or training that he has from an old master, and then it's never discussed as to what that is.
Yeah, and in the book, that's what it was. In the book, it's very clearly spelled out to be Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we
I
just
don't.
assume because I
Yeah, I
think
think
in
we
the
just
movie
assume in the movie.
Obi-Wan kind of gives them the well, I thought he was dead kind of look. Like I
Yeah,
think you're
yeah.
right. I think it's exactly when it happens when they're giving the babies to each of them and going, okay, you've got
It's like their
while you're
final
going into
plan
hiding here.
when they're on Bale's ship. They're
Yes,
going over like their final
yep.
stuff, and
You've got
that's
homework to
that.
do. Yep.
Yeah. So this whole thing is about finding Sifo Dyas, and it kind of goes on a wild goose chase a bit here. And like they have to go back because Palpatine's a little jerk. They go to be like, hey, this was sealed by your office, and he's like, actually, it's from Chancellor Valorum. So I was not Chancellor back then. Remember? It's like, yeah, but you've been orchestrating this shit. But it's also like, it's really odd because there was like the way ours works, right? Like if a president seals something, another president has access to read it and decide to unseal it. So like, can Palpatine not be like, I can unseal that record? Like, I don't understand why he's like, you have to go speak to a former chancellor that has no power anymore. It's kind of odd thing there. Also, Yoda has to know something's up with Palpatine, right? Because it's like they ask him, how did it go with him? He's like, about as successful as usual.
This guy's worthless.
Oh, man.
But he has to think he's really stupid because Palpatine just like the whole time, and he does it so much, and I'm like, I get it, like I get what they're trying to do, but he goes, yeah, Sifo D, I've never heard of him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
and it's like, come on.
yeah, and you know what's funny too is then when he's like, he does it again where he's like, Master, what was his name again?
Yeah.
And Yoda's like, Sifo Dyas. He's like, yes, Sifo Dyas. No,
Yeah.
never heard
You know
that
who's
name.
mentally unfit to run Senate Jordan?
You know what I love
Definitely
about that though
Palpatine.
is like right after. I wish I could relate this to something, but it's like right after that, he immediately calls Duke. He's like, why are they asking about Sifo Dyas? He's
Yeah.
like, what did you do? Retrace
Yeah.
your steps.
Yeah. If Chancellor Palpatine was running this or was in this world, Jordan, in the United States, we'd have a particular group that would be screaming at their Twitter bots and through, well, mostly Facebook, that'd be saying, he's mentally unfit. What is wrong with him?
Well, he's right in that age range of being totally fine to run for president.
Yeah.
And
80.
And then he also like, oh, could you imagine the real world conspiracies of this? Like, you know how people do the whole like dark Biden stuff and all that? Imagine like people doing that and photoshopping a hood on Palpatine and then somebody being like, wait, that actually looks like the Sith Lord I've seen.
And figure it out. They'd be like, oh my gosh. It
and then Palpatine has to go send somebody to kill him.
It was him the whole time. Gosh, conspiracy theorists would love this show.
Oh man, they would like, man, if they lived in I would love to know the conspiracy theories of the galaxy. Like
it's Obi-Wan.
Them being like, oh, you know what? The Chancellor's the Sith Lord, and people being like, that's ridiculous. That's like true. But yeah, so Obi-Wan and Anakin are sent to the Pikes, where Sifo Dyas had been making a deal, and they're recalling stuff from like 10 years ago. Like, oh yeah, that's what I remember. It's like, yeah, whatever. Nobody can remember that time frame that well. But they said they made a deal with a man named Tyrannus, and at this time, we know Darth Tyrannus is Dooku.
Yeah.
I forgot that they had no clue about that, and they're like, and Obi-Wan's like, oh, I heard that name before from Django.
Right.
And again, they're not putting this together then that Dooku was the one that put the clones together if Django knows Tyrannus and all that.
And at some point, Jordan, wouldn't you go, you know what, come with me. You're going to tell me which person you saw. And be like, the cloak guy, that's him. That's the old dude.
Yeah, it's him.
And
then also the Chancellor kind of looks like somebody I've seen before.
Sifo Dyas? What?
I just imagine that, like, as soon as Yoda walked out of that room, like, Palpatine's like, hood up, and he's calling Dooku like, "I need to make a call." Um, just like not even like that's what's funny too is when he has to like call Dooku, he has to like put on his whole Sith stuff. He's like,
Yeah,
"I gotta change robes
right. It's like you two are the only two that would know who each other are. Like
in
it's
case
okay not to go
communications
talk,
are
I
interrupted."
guess,
Right?
but
You can't have it. You
when
can't
they're in the
have it.
same room together, it doesn't make sense. It's like, all right, dude, like you don't need the. If
Oh,
I was
that
I was
is
Dooku, I'd be like, all right, dude, you don't need the hood. I know you are.
yeah, yeah. You know what though? That reminds me of like like real life stuff with like friends. You know,
Yeah.
where it's like we're doing our cool little thing,
Yep.
so we're gonna both be wearing our hoods. But yeah,
Right.
people will be like, "Dude, you guys look so lame from over here." But one thing I liked, Dooku arrives and fights, and Obi-Wan's like chatting with him, and he's like, uh, "I told you." Dooku says, "I told you everything you need to know on Geonosis all those years ago." Um, which is true, right? He told them there that the Republic was run by a Sith Lord and all this kind of stuff. And Yoda at the end is pretty much like, designed by the Dark Lord of the Sith, this web is. For now, we must play his game, which I think is a mistake. I think playing his game is a mistake. While I think that the truth would make the Jedi not look great to the people, I think it's a publicity hit you got to take to be able to say, hey, these clones were not. While we love the clones, they've been great to us. We're being deceived. Now, of course, do you take it to the Senate? No, because the person deceiving you is the head of that. They don't know that. But I think there's got to be like a take it to the press type of thing. There's got to be some way
Yeah.
to leak this stuff so that way pressure comes on Palpatine and not pressure coming on the Jedi all the time. Like pressure being on Palpatine of, whoa, the senator is allowing this, the chancellor is allowing this to happen and we're deceived by the separatists. He looks like a weak leader. Like there's got to
Yeah.
be a way to do that.
There's never a moment, and I get that they're supposed to be peacekeepers, and I guess that would go against their peacekeeping. But couldn't they have somebody? They need a PR person. They need somebody to go out there and go, while the chancellor is doing these things, the Jedi Council does not agree with the actions and steps that are being taken by. Like, why is there never any conversations in the Senate with that? Like, why aren't the Jedi ever like, something's going on, and it seems to be right under our nose because now they're really starting to sniff it out, especially once Yoda has these visions. Like, that's weird. There's somebody internally, like, he has these visions of, and we're kind of warp speeding through, but like he has the visions of all these Jedi getting killed, which was great, which was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Which is all, I mean, it was awful what happened, but it was cool. Like flash forward, I guess, to but also bringing back parts of the movie, and it had the scenes of them in Clone Wars dying, where in live action, it was just really cool, that transition between the two, or that translation between the two. But yeah, this, I don't know why they didn't ever suspect that it had to be somebody internally, because how are they figuring all this stuff out too, would be my question. If I was the Jedi Council, I'd be sitting there going, this is strange. Like, they seem to know our every move, or
Yeah,
they
I'd
seem
be
to
like,
know
can we
everything.
take a minute to
Yeah,
like sit and talk about this before we
right.
just rush into doing something?
And
If
Ahsoka's like,
Dooku,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if Dooku made a deal with the Pikes, and that's also the last place
Yeah.
Sifo Dyas was seen or whatever,
Yeah,
and Dooku knows Jango Fett, who is the model of the clones.
yeah,
I think something's wrong. And we just had a clone a couple weeks ago shoot somebody that they shouldn't have and go crazy. And then another clone started going crazy. And we know they have these inhibitor chips that are supposed to help their behavior. What if the inhibitor chips are actually the things that are causing the behavior?
right.
Type of thing. None of that critical thinking. And I know the answer is, well, clouded by the dark side. But to me, that just feels like an excuse. Like it
Yeah,
just feels like a when the writer writes this stuff, or like when George was like writing this stuff, not so much the Clone Wars, but the actual shows, and it's like, how could they not figure it out? It's like, oh well, they were clouded by the dark side. It just feels like
gap
like
in the
I
storyline. Yeah,
yeah, or like I don't want to say the Jedi are dumb, so it's
yeah,
but it come across really dumb
Yeah.
with all of this. So just fun to mention this stuff. Okay, so for the next episode, voices, and this will be the whole arc that we'll talk about here. It kicks off with Yoda hearing the voice of Qui-Gon. And it's actually Liam Neeson returning to voice Qui-Gon. What do you think of that?
I was gonna, I was gonna text you, but your phone doesn't work. So I was actually gonna ask you. I was like, did Liam Neeson actually come back? Because it sounded just like him. Like if it's not, then somebody's really good at imitating his voice. But that was so cool, Jordan. I got so many chills in this story arc. I mean, I got
Yeah.
so many. It was insane. Like my legs were just. I watched this morning, and I just had chills the whole time, just because there's so many things that we get in this episode that are, I guess, nostalgic feeling for me because I'm thinking of 4, 5, and 6, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, there's so many things that happen in this. I'm just, it's amazing to me, and how well it's done.
Did you check your air condition? Maybe you just had it really
No,
cold.
you know what? Maybe it was, but the one that made the one that got me that was really surprising was Dagobah. The first time seeing it in Clone Wars,
Yes.
I
Yeah,
got chills.
Dagobah. I forgot he goes there. But yeah, we hear the voice of Qui-Gon. By the way, Ki-Adi-Mundi, very popular this week of the recording. All right. So if you've been following that stuff, you know what week we're recording this. This is coming out in like July or August or whatever, but you know when we're recording now. Because he's been very popular this week of his appearance on The Acolyte. And his birthday has been very popular as well. So happy birthday, Ki-Adi-Mundi. But he's a real jerk in this. I could not stand Ki-Adi-Mundi in this episode. Ki-Adi-Mundi does think Dooku's the apprentice, right? And he's like, there should still be a master. So look, Ki-Adi-Mundi locked in. He's locked in there. But his issue I have with Ki-Adi-Mundi is when Yoda says about hearing like the voices and stuff. And I think he even mentions hearing Qui-Gon. Ki-Adi-Mundi says, this could be a deception by the Sith. And Obi-Wan gets offended for Yoda, by the way, on that, which is good friend Obi-Wan there. And this is like when they're all meditating together. They all come into the circle of the council, hugging, right? And then they're like, none of us heard anything. And Yoda's like, yeah, I didn't either. And Ki-Adi-Mundi is like, hey, that might just be a lie. It might just be deception from the Sith. So he was a real jerk in that. And then also when Yoda gets pulled out of the meditation tank or whatever, right? And that he talked to the dead, Ki-Adi-Mundi said, this is not possible. And he continues to think it's the Sith deceiving them. And Anakin says it's not possible to like what you currently know, which is something Yoda had said to him, right? Because the doctor says Yoda's in perfect health. People think maybe because Count Dooku was Yoda's apprentice, whoever is doing this may know that connection. And, you know, Dooku was Qui-Gon's a master. So there's a little bit of a lineage here between masters and apprentices of what he's hearing. And the way Yoda says, I have to go rest to Anakin sounds exactly like what he says to Luke.
Yeah.
Right? Rest.
Rest.
Anakin says that what we know of the Force is that they don't keep their identities when they're joining the Force. And Yoda says, but what of what we don't know? And that's kind of what Anakin throws back at Ki-Adi-Mundi, who doesn't take it like a champ. He's like, whatever. And Anakin is then tasked by Yoda to help him escape. And Anakin says the council will not like this, which Yoda says, disobey the council, your specialty is. That's why I asked you.
Yeah. It's one of I laughed so hard. I was like, that's great. I love that Yoda is so self-aware of everything that's going on with Anakin. But Jordan, this was what happens. Like Ki-Adi-Mundi, I mean, the dude's 200 years old. He's got to be crotchety. He's probably, yeah, screw you, Yoda. I'm older than you.
To be honest,
seniority.
this is
Not
why
older,
like none of that stuff bothers me with the Acolyte and stuff.
Right.
Is from what we've seen so far, he doesn't know anything about like there actually being Sith. So what he says in episode 1 to him is completely true. We do know the Sith exists, so Ki-Adi-Mundi is just actually playing wrong in episode 1. And I think people complaining about that know that, but what they're trying to say is then that he should have no knowledge of it, so he can be wrong in episode 1. And he doesn't have any knowledge of this.
Right.
So he is he hasn't seen the Sith. So yeah, now that there is a Sith, he thinks everything is manipulated by the Sith, which is fair. I will say for Keanu, this is fair. He's actually the only one questioning stuff. So good on you. But one thing I think that is very interesting about this to me is that for Yoda even questions this stuff, right? Um, and to me, it shows that they are actually so closed off by the to the Force because of the darkness that has clouded it, that they can't even tell Logan when something is an actual gift from the Force and be able to use it properly. This is actually Qui-Gon trying to communicate to
Mm-hmm.
Yoda to give him the powers of immortality, something that the Sith have been trying to seek. So obviously a little suspect, right? But the Sith are seeking immortality on our plane, trying to live forever. Palpatine comes back in Rise of the Skywalker, right? Rise of Skywalker as a clone, and he's transferred his energy into it because he wants to be this being that actually exists. While the Jedi have decided that the best way to have immortality is to become one with the Force and be able to shape events and show up as Force ghosts and live that way. But they can't even actually see this as an actual gift because they're too worried about the darkness that's clouding it, the Force itself. If all the Jedi had learned to been able to do this before everything falls apart in Revenge of the Sith, this plays out totally different.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Yeah, and they don't ever take the vehicles of success. They always go, "Now we're good. You guys can have that one. The Sith, you guys can have that car. You guys take it. We'll catch the next one." So, and then look what happens. Then you got what hell, the Last Jedi, all of a sudden, and now you're screwed.
Yeah, and we get things like he goes to the Dagobah cave, right? Which
So cool.
he talks to Qui-Gon about how the planet is strong in the Force, and Qui-Gon says it's one of the purest places in the galaxy. And Yoda says, "Can you show yourself?" No, my training in the Force was not complete. So that's why Qui-Gon's only a voice.
Yeah.
He will appear as a Force ghost in the show Obi-Wan, though. So he has been able to either continue training in the Beyond and been able to manifest himself fully as a being. But originally, this was the response on why he's only a voice. And then I exist where there is no future or no past. I can only show you a place where answers will be revealed to you. And he takes him to the cave, which Yoda enters, and yes, he sees the Jedi fight clones. Again, a little hint here, Jedi, that maybe you don't trust the clones. He sees Shakti dying, which is getting stabbed through her chest. By the way, this is a deleted scene from Revenge of the Sith. So that's what that's a reference to. It's a nice deleted scene from Revenge of the Sith where I think it's Grievous or so she died a few times, okay? She originally had a deleted scene, I think, in something else dying by Grievous's hands. And then in this, I believe it was Anakin's lightsaber that kills her in the Jedi Temple while she's meditating. Then he sees Mace Windu getting Force lightning. He sees Sidious attacking some of the other Jedi, like Kit Fisto, AC Din. And then he sees Darth Sidious, who he does know the name of. He says Sidious, I believe. And he exits the cave. And he's, Qui-Gon says something about Yoda says, "Such darkness, such evil. When does this happen?" And he says, "It's happening now. With each day the Clone War wages, the stronger the dark side grows. Like the more dark, the more evil." But he mentions also, "There is always hope. I've been tasked to giving you guidance. You have been chosen like I before you. You will be able to commune with the living after death." And then that's where Yoda decides he has to go to another planet where he meets the 5 priestesses, which are confusion, sadness, anger, joy, and serenity.
So the Inside Out characters, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Nice tie-in to this time of year.
Great, yeah.
Synergy. A vision of the Jedi Temple he gets. He sees dead Jedi. He sees Mace Windu dead. He sees the younglings from the Youngling arc. There's your guys that you keep saying are going to die. And then
Yes,
he
he
sees
did.
Ahsoka asking for help, right? And
Ooh.
she says, "The Sith did it. The Council expelled me. Why would you do that?" Right? And Yoda has this realization: failed, I have failed them all. One of the younglings, though, from the arc is still alive and tells Yoda that she will guide him and takes him to the Jedi Temple during the good times. And this is there's no war, Master,
Hmm.
only peace and tranquility. And we see Qui-Gon and Dooku talking. We see Quinlan Voss. We see the tree, right? And they all
Hmm.
go to the Force tree, and this is where Yoda's like, "This is wrong. This is lies." And that's Dooku turns around, his eyes are all red, and all the Jedi start like floating in the air. And Yoda calls this out as an illusion, and he passes the test here. Um, and then he's told to travel to Moraband, which is the Sith home. If you did not know that, Moraband is the home of the Sith. That's where I have to go. What do you think of the visions on the Jedi Temple and seeing all the peace and happiness as well?
Again, I kept as stages went on, I'd get chills just because you see Dooku interacting with Qui Gon and Obi-Wan, and you're like, this is weird, and it seems like, I don't know, it just seems like we're getting all these things in his visions that like have happened or were going to happen. Ahsoka dying really got to me too. I was like, wow, that's, I mean, that it, having seen Ahsoka now, and then
First and
knowing
only time we've seen her in this
the whole
season as
season.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you if she was in the original when it came out. I didn't know if like it was, you know what I mean? Like because she's
Yeah,
not in
this was
this
not
season.
edited. Yeah, so
Okay.
she was in this. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if she was then added back in because I know Disney's done that with other things, but like I know with, for instance, I just saw on TikTok that Anakin's added to the what is it? The new no, it's
Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi.
That was
Yeah.
a George thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, George loved fixing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Making Greedo shoot first instead of
Right.
Han.
Yeah, but yeah, so I don't know. Like I got chills every time that he had these visions because there's so much that I know from past experiences going into this show.
Yeah, we get the final episode of this arc was huge as well because he goes to Moraband, right? He sees vision of old Sith. They even mentioned Darth Bane, who was the person that created the Rule of Two. That happened in the old expanded universe, and that's something that they referenced here in this. Dooku arrives on Coruscant, and Sidious says that they have an opportunity to strike a blow on the Jedi Order. So he knows that Yoda had walked into the chamber, and they're about to meet the Sith. That's what the priestess says. The next chamber is one that they do not have control over. It is a chamber where they used to sacrifice Jedi, and the Sith of Yoda's time will appear there. And when he goes in and he does see Sidious and Dooku, well, he doesn't see them right away. He sees Quinlan Vos, not Quinlan Vos, sorry. He sees Sifo Dyas as because Palpatine says, "We shall come to Yoda with a long lost face," right? And Sifo Dyas says, "I can tell you who the Sith Lord is. Free me, and I can tell you." Yoda faints, and then he sees like a vision, right? And they have, or sort of starts fainting. His eyes start going weird. Um, so Anakin is on this gunship with the clones and Yoda, and they think Dooku is aboard this thing that they're chasing him. We believe he's meeting his master. The time has come to find the identity. And Yoda even says, "Execute them. We must. End it now, we will." Rex sees the two targets, and it's Sidious and Dooku. Dooku lights up his lightsaber. Anakin faces him. Anakin wins and puts Dooku in the same position as Revenge of the Sith with the blades right at his neck. And he cuts off his head despite Yoda saying no. So a little bit of foreshadowing here. Yoda and Sidious fight. Anakin sees this and tries to help, but Sidious force chokes and lightnings him. Yoda kind of starts taking the brunt of the lightning while he saves Anakin. And Yoda and Sidious fall. And while they're falling, Yoda tries to pull the hood back to see who it is, but it's just nothingness, right? Like it
Mm-hmm.
just disappears. And Dooku and Sidious say, like, "We have failed to break Master Yoda. He is strong. We need more time." Yoda is visited by the priestess and says Qui-Gon will train him, and also mentions how there is another Skywalker. Yoda goes back to R2, time to go home. Jedi at the Jedi Temple, Yoda is at the Force Tree. Mace and Obi-Wan talk to Yoda. He says he does not have much insight. He's no longer certain anyone wins a war, but there is a path for us. Victory for all time. Which, of course, is referencing defeating Darth Vader and Palpatine at the end of Episode 6. But it's just more of a question of, what does Yoda know? I think he's only had glimpses. Obviously, I don't think he knows Anakin turns to the dark side, or else he would have prevented that.
Yeah. It was interesting because I was like sitting there thinking, I'm like, I guess you could take there's another Skywalker as like, oh, maybe Anakin has a brother or sister or something of the sorts. And I was like, okay, that makes more sense. Where like Yoda's still not sure as to what's happening. I do think it's interesting too, because it's like you look forward to what's going to happen, and Yoda knows all these things, but it's like, how did he not figure out, at least something from that? It seems like he knows that the war is coming. He's very Doctor Strange-esque. It's like there's one pathway to defeating the Sith, and it's going to happen, but I don't know that path. Or I do know that path, and you don't know because he's not telling anybody. So, and that's the other thing too, is I think Yoda too has some inklings as to what's going on, but I think is hesitant to tell people because while we all trust, people like Obi-Wan or like a Mace, how does Yoda know who's really operating this thing? Because he knows that Dooku has a master that he's serving under, and the dark side is bigger than just Dooku, and that there's another person, and he doesn't know who that is, so he's not going to tell anybody. Could be anybody.
So Palpatine's really good at posing as himself and then also being his true self when he's a Sith. Just as a fun thing here, could Palpatine have acted as a Jedi this whole time? Like, could they have, could he have been able to do the two-sided thing as a member of the council? Because, why is there no internal guesses that maybe whoever, because they already know everything that the Jedi are doing and everything, how is there no thought that it might still be somebody here in the Jedi Order that is the master?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that ever crossed their mind. Is it too hard to... I don't know. It can't be too hard to pretend because Palpatine's pretending in front of the Jedi all the time. So it'd be I'd be curious to know if that's possible at all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps up season 6. So next time, this is the last time that we go out of order here, really. The last 2 times. Next week, 4-episode arc. Season 7 is 3 4-episode arcs, so that's how we'll cover it here. We have Season 7, Episode 5, Gone with a Trace. Season 7, Episode 6, Deal, No Deal. Not Deal or No Deal.
Great show.
Deal, no Deal. Yeah. Season 7, Episode 7, Dangerous Debt. Season 7, Episode 8, Together Again. This is where we'll catch up with what Ahsoka's been doing during this time. Then, after that, we go to Episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we go to the last 4. So that's our layout for this. So those are Season 7, Episodes 5 through 8, as we get ready to start Season 7 of our Clone Wars watch into the last season. Logan, 12 episodes remain.
That's insane. Flew through it.
We did. Especially with how we've recorded these. We've had to fly through these episodes.
We're in hyperspace, Jordan. That's where we are.
Be a little bit of a break for us recording-wise. Couple weeks maybe, and then we'll dive in and finish Season 7. You should notice nothing wrong on the release schedule-wise. So,
and Yoda's going to be told there's...
plan.
Yeah, Yoda's going to be told there's another weekend.
Yes. That makes me wonder, is what you said there, is there already, is Padme already pregnant now?
Right. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
How close are we up to Revenge? Because
that makes sense now.
That would make sense why they're there's another Skywalker.
That's a good point.
There's 2 of them right now.
There's 2. There's Leia's, 3 of them
in Padme's belly. Yeah. So, that makes me wonder if she's pregnant already.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if she was pregnant during the Clovis arc, it's man, she's about to find out some bad news if she wanted to move on from Anakin.
Yeah, just wait until they tear all the, because people are out there throwing conspiracy out there that Disney's going to come in and say Clovis was actually the real father. We'll have like a
Oh
morgue
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. It wasn't Anakin all
Hashtag
along.
yeah. Could you imagine that being a retcon? Like
Oh, I
we
think
find out
people
in the
would
next
burn the place to
animated
the ground.
series. We find
Yeah.
out the next animated series where like Luke is a master. He does this whole quest and he finds out Clovis is
Luke
his dad and he's
Clovis.
not actually a Skywalker.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, you can contact us at podawakens on all of our social medias. Podawakens@gmail.com for longer form. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps other people find the show. Have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next time when we kick off our season 7 coverage of Chronological Clone Wars.